What's the worst thing you've ever done at work? I forgot the where clause on update query, and there was no backup. I deleted over 750K data points from a medical database because I missed the equals in my statement, and it just assumed I meant the whole database. My company paid out $10,000 as a settlement for time required to re-enter the data. TLDR, my boss paid $10,000 in damages for a database typo I made. And this is why there are DEV in test environments. Never do anything in a production database without going through dev and test first. Edit. Over 50 down votes from future Tier 1 help desk professionals. Your backup administrators should be contributing to this thread as well. The head of our IT department was forced to resign last year. Backup admin had ignored warnings about failed jobs. Server team guy used to clicking yes to any "are you sure" prompts deleted a database. Whoops. I worked a job right out of college that I had to travel for 300 plus days a year. I got per diem and a company credit card with literally no limit. The company bookkeeper was a mid-40s woman who was an alcoholic and hated her husband and was hell-bent on achieving full cougar status. I proverbially dipped my pen in the company ink not 2 months into employment. For the next 2 years, I kept her happy, and she overlooked the charges to my company credit card, ranging from $200 dinners, hotel suites, strip clubs, casinos, and Amazon.com. This is what's the worst thing you've done at work. Not make us jealous of how awesome your job was. Goddamn. And I thought I was being slick jacking it in the boss bathroom. You bought Amazon.com on the company credit card? Is that you, Ford Prefect? Me and a few coworkers did something similar when we noticed food disappearing from the break room fridge. We bought a pizza, and after we ate about half of it, we removed the toppings so we could scrape off the sauce and replace it with holy shit habanero sauce. We watched the suspect enter the break room casually and then run out screaming and clawing at his mouth toward the water fountain. He was literally crying for about 20 minutes. Coincidentally, the food in the fridge stopped disappearing after that incident. Edit. After reading all the responses, I see that I'm not actually an evil mastermind. You people are brutal. Someone posted this at Lifehacker a couple of years ago. It's still my favorite story. True story. A guy I knew bought pricey, freshly squeezed OJ every day, but it kept vanishing from the fridge at work. He labeled it, mentioned it in meetings, etc., but to no avail. One day, he decided he'd had enough and added some clear, flavorless liquid laxative. Mid-morning, he and everybody else on the entire floor heard an almighty shriek and stuck their heads over the partitions to see a young woman racing to the bathroom. Sadly, she had worn a skirt that day, and she was spraying shit down her legs as she ran. She stayed in the bathroom for a long time, snuck away while nobody was looking, and never came back. They had to send her purse to her. One day, I went to work. It was around 8:45 a.m. Got on the internet to do some literature search. Then my autopilot kicked in. I don't even know what happened. Next thing I recall is that it was 2 p.m. All the Reddit links on the top 600 hottest links were purple, and the only reason I stopped was to check time, because I was hungry. I got paid for the whole day and felt guilty. Went home, ate dinner, slept, and repeated again and again for the next 6 months. Are you me right now? This is me Monday through Friday. I only need to do 2 hours of actual work a day. The rest, I just need to be in the office to give the illusion I'm doing work. I used to work at the Cheesecake Factory, and we have a chicken and shrimp gumbo. One day, I had Muslim guests, burqas, and all sit down with me. They explained pretty clearly they can't have anything with alcohol, so no wine sauce or pork. I said, sure, no problem. They ordered the chicken and shrimp gumbo, and I was like, okay, cool, that works. Problem is that shit had pork sausage in it, and I completely forgot. It's not called a chicken and shrimp and pork sausage gumbo, so my bad. The lady was halfway through eating it when she asked me what that meat was that she was eating. If she hadn't eaten most of it already, I would have taken it back. But I just lied and said, oh, that's beef, you're good. I walked away like fool. Don't feel too bad. The Quran says you can't go to hell for something you're tricked or forced into. Yeah, we had a guy in Iraq eating ham, and when people would try to tell him, he'd put his hands over his ears and say, I don't know. Similar to an old joke I heard. Jewish people do not recognize Jesus as the Messiah. Protestants do not recognize the Pope as the leader of the Christian faith. Baptists do not recognize each other in the liquor store. Killed a guy. Ran out in front of the train I was driving. He probably thought he has time to make it across the tracks. He didn't. Edit. I just want to say thanks for all the support. Although I must admit that I suffered a few sleepless nights at first. But thanks to a great network of colleagues, I soon realized that, like most of you have mentioned, it wasn't my fault. And the fact you fuckers hit the horn for like 5 minutes before you get there, he caused his own problem. At least I'm sure on the horn thing. Having spent a day at a festival 20 feet from train tracks. A friend I know drives trains and says it's amazing how many people they kill. Don't try to run in front of a train. The worst is probably when you see a parent drag their kid across the tracks to save a few minutes walking time. I actually saw what I assume was a couple of teachers lead an entire class of kids across 6 sets of tracks where the trains go up to 160 kilometers per hour once. I was so furious I had to stop and yell at them. If you have kids, teach them to respect railroad tracks. It's not worth risking your life to save a minute or two. You will not always see or hear the train coming. I worked at a coffee shop and was used to rude customers, but this one guy seriously took the cake. He deserves what he got. This man placed his order at the speaker asking for macchiato. I ask if he means a caramel macchiato, completely different but more popular drink. And he says no, so I give him his total. Eventually he gets to the window, pays, and I hand him his drink, where he proceeds to completely lose his shit. He tells me that this is not the drink he ordered, and I'm a complete idiot, etc., etc. Come to find out, he actually wanted the caramel macchiato. This happens often, so I told him we wouldn't charge him the extra, and I'd have it rushed out. This isn't good enough for him. He grumbles about deserving to get his money back and the new drink, but I politely excuse myself in the window until the drink is made. My barista finishes the drink, and I hand it to him. He grabs it from me and drives forward, but he's not done yet. I'm talking with the next customer when this guy stops his car, gets out, and walks in between her car and my window. He leans in the store and hollers that this still isn't his drink. He wanted it iced. I ask him to come into the front of the store since I can't serve him like this, but no, he'd rather stand in front of this lady. My coffee shop had a policy where we could not say no to a customer. I sometimes wondered if I would be expected to service someone sexually, as long as they asked while I was behind the register. I asked my barista to make the caramel macchiato again, but iced and as fast as freaking possible. I had gone hide from this man again, but he begins yelling, so I come back. Now he's saying that he ordered and paid for a cream cheese muffin. I asked to see his receipt so I can show him that he didn't pay for one, and that we had been out of cream cheese muffins all morning. But he refused to show me his receipt. I'm trying to reprint the previous order, but he's yelling, and my manager has made it clear that she's not going to help at all. So I say, fuck it, and go to the pastry case and grab whatever kind of muffin we had. Just as my barista hands the new latte to the crazy man, I hurl the muffin through the window and hit him in the chest. It gets muffin all over his shirt, and say, I'll comp it for you. I was actually shocked when he quietly took the muffin and his now third drink and walked back to his car. The lady, who had been sitting stunned in her car the whole time, actually said, well done. To me, TLDR, I threw a muffin at a customer. Edit, what is this, Gold? Wow, thanks. I honestly didn't think anyone even see this comment. I'm so glad y'all like my story. Some folks are professional complainers. If you work in a restaurant, you'll meet the guy who eats 90% of the meal, then asks for his money back because the food is cold. They're always on some depressingly small scam. Don't say no is a good policy for the employee, but you need a manager to run the grifters and nutcases out of the store if necessary. Some folks are professional complainers. If you work in a restaurant, you'll meet the guy who eats 90% of the meal, then asks for his money back because the food is cold. They're always on some depressingly small scam. Saw this in action one night at Chili's. The wife and I were sitting across the aisle from a couple with a baby. When we sat down, they already had their food, even a full plate of food for the baby, who was about 6 to 8 months old in a car seat. Then we heard them complain about the food to their server, which, like you said, they'd already eaten half of. Everything about the food wasn't right, and they wanted completely different stuff to replace it, but didn't let the staff take away the plates of half-eaten food. So they got new food and another full plate for the baby. ate about half of that, and then asked for everything to be boxed up in to-go containers, even the unacceptable food from earlier. Then, when the server came back with all the boxes, they tried to pull the trigger on the end game. They asked for their drinks to be put in to-go cups as well. So off the server goes with 2 half-full iced teas in his hands to put them in cups, and as soon as he disappeared, they made a break for it. They got up. The guy grabbed all the food and went right, and the wife grabbed the baby and went left, both headed for the door. Luckily, the manager, like us, had been watching them since the shenanigans started, so he was right on top of the guy as soon as he moved. He approached the dude and said, "Sir, were you planning on leaving before paying?" And the guy replied, No, I was. I was looking for the cash register so I could pay the check. The check your server didn't give you yet? When I was younger, I worked at a home for deaf people with severe autism. There were 5 residents, and one of them was completely deaf and blind. Coupled with his autism, he didn't have a lot of pleasures in life other than wearing comfortable hats and necklaces. One of the workers there decided on a whim that it would be a good idea to buy him a very expensive stereo set with a top-of-the-line headset. There were attempts to get him to use it with the idea that he might like the feeling of the bass on his eardrums, but he never took a liking to it, and so it sat in his room year after year. I came back summer after summer, and every time I went in his room, I just saw it lying there collecting dust. In a spur-of-the-moment decision, I took the headset home with me. No one ever noticed or cared, but that doesn't change the fact that I stole from a blind, deaf, autistic man with epilepsy and, at the time, a broken jaw. DR stole from a blind, deaf, autistic man that was in my care. One of the workers there decided on a whim that it would be a good idea to buy him a very expensive stereo set. So was the stereo bought with the money of the resident? Or did the home buy it? It seems very wrong that one of the workers can decide to buy expensive stuff with the residents' money without their consent. Just buy him a massive bag of comfortable hats and necklaces. From the little I know about autism, he probably doesn't care about money at all. So your coworker decided to buy an expensive stereo set for a deaf man, with the deaf man's own money. On a whim? It sounds your coworker should be in here talking about the worst thing he has ever done at work. Yeah, I thought it would be funny to use a blind, deaf, autistic man's money to buy him an expensive stereo system that he has no use for. I'm basically a modern-day Mother Teresa. It was his money, which is where the guilt comes from. I can still make amends, but that would require me to confess in the first place and jeopardize my current hunt for a job. Unless, of course, I donate the exact amount to the house, which isn't a bad idea now that I think of it. At work, we communicate through Skype. There was a co-worker I kind of flirted with. We would ask each other questions, and the other person had to answer honestly. I asked the guy whether he had chest hair, but instead of sending it to him, I sent it to my boss. Fortunately, my boss laughed it off and told me to go back to work. I still cringe at the memory. That's like the time I was Google chatting with my wife and told her that the dress makes her cleavage pop out like crazy. Except I had accidentally clicked my boss's name and sent the message to her instead. Almost immediately she turns around and says, what? Awkward conversation ensued, but we all got a good joke out of it. Skype is dangerous at work. We used it too while all working in the same room. Accidentally send a very mean, gossip message to the person it was about, hated him. Luckily, he was not behind his desk. Still remember the faces when I screamed and ran to his computer to delete. Always triple check. When I was younger, I was an auditor for a hotel rewards program. Basically, my job was to spot fraud and abuse and prevent it or stop it. My routine consisted of spotting trends, notifying our guests, and asking for explanations of their activity and negotiating penalties with them. Now, I had a woman who I stumbled across by accident, and she was guilty of major fraud, and she was good. She had accumulated around 4 million points through her scheme. I sent her an email and letter asking her to call or email me to discuss her account and put an account freeze so she couldn't use her points. She didn't respond after a week. So I sent her another email and called her, and she promptly hung up on me. This went on for a solid 2 months. She had a trip to Paris booked, and she was planning on using her points for this, which she can't do because her account is frozen. Also, because this is a sister company hotel, they must have the certificate in hand or pay. So she gets there, enjoys her week stay, and it comes time to check out, while the hotel wants to be paid. She calls into customer service and pitches a fit, and they can't help her because of the freeze I placed on her account. The CSR calls me home, and I come in and call the hotel and finally speak to her. They want to be paid. I need you to overnight a certificate to the hotel. Me, I can't do that. I've suspended your account because you've abused our program. Yes, you can look. They want $7,000 for the certificate. Me, I've been trying to contact you for the last 2 months, and you have chosen not to respond to me. We can discuss your account now if you'd like, and we can compromise, and I'll talk to the hotel. No, you need to just give them the certificate. I'm not going to discuss anything with you. You should be happy that I'm spending all the time in your hotels. Me, look, it's Saturday morning. I don't want to be in here discussing this with you. And it's not you that's been in our properties. It's been friends and co-workers. You've blatantly abused our program, and it costs us money. Fuck you. You don't know who I am. I'll be calling the CEO and getting you fired. You're just a fucking loser who thinks he's important now. You fucking get the certificate here, and maybe I won't get you fired. Me, ma'am, I don't know you, but your threats don't scare me. So here's what's going to happen. I've zeroed out your account. Your guest status has been stripped, and I've closed your account. We do not want a business. Thank you for your time. What? They're going to charge me $7,000. Me, had you been nicer to me and responded to me, we could have settled this. As it is, your attitude has prevented me from being willing to do anything for you. Look, I'm sorry. I don't have $7,000. Me, that's not my problem. Guess this is going to be a $7,000 lesson for you. Slash hangs up phone, ended up with a presidential complaint, but nothing came of it. When I was a teenager working as a meat packer, I discovered in the meat I was sending to the conveyor belt pieces of metal. The glistening caught my eye. After closer inspection, I noticed more larger bits, through about 150 kilograms of meat of various cuts, and all coming along the line at a fast rate. I hit the emergency stop on the packer, as obviously there was a major problem. This meat was being taken directly to the sales floor. Apparently the butchers didn't see it that way. After a fairly heated discussion/inspection, it was quite obvious the guard of the bandsaw had migrated and was shearing off portions of teeth. There were almost full 6mm shards of tooth through a whole heap of meat, packaged and ready to be. I was expecting a manager to get called in, everything inevitably getting dumped as the pieces of metal range from large to specks, and us having play catch up all day. No, the butchers wanted to go home, as they had been cutting since 4 a.m., ordering us to remove it all by hand. There were hundreds of packs we had to take off the shelf, unwrapping each and inspected meticulously, though no one could have removed it all. I shudder to think what would have happened if someone had swallowed one of those teeth. I still feel guilty I didn't alert a manager. But the butchers were all gassed out of their minds and would threaten you with a wave of their knife if you questioned anything. I was young and stupid. So many fond memories, like did you know? If you accidentally send a bag of meat through the mincer still in a plastic bag, apparently it is cool to just mince it on a finer grind, so the customer doesn't notice. Fucking shocking shit went on there. I work at a potato chip manufacturing company. We have these white plastic belts that get covered in black tar when they run. It completely covers entire sections of the belt, to the point you can't even see the white of the belt through it. Looks and feels like dirty motor oil. It seems to be that when this polypropylene belt rubs against the stainless steel, it creates this residue. It is worse closer to the fryer/salter, so salt or warmer oil may have something to do with it. I've used similar food-grade belts at another potato chip manufacturing company and never had an issue, so I figured it had to be something to do with the belt material. I looked into the FDA food-grade certificate for the belts and found out the only certificate was an EU Rose certificate saying the belt was safe to throw in a landfill. Contacted the manufacturer in China and found that there was no food-grade certification in any country, much less for the FDA. The president of my company decided we would just wipe the black off the belts occasionally, and that would solve the issue. We have never been audited or inspected by any government body, FDA, OHSA, etc., and he gets away with anything. He was too cheap to buy a food-grade belt and decided to just use these, even though there are plenty of more expensive, certified food-grade belts on the market. TLDR, if you see a black oil on the edges of your potato chips, please file a complaint. It's the only way something will get done about this. This is a really, really good reason to get your meat from a local butcher. I work in a locally owned butcher shop, and we are insanely meticulous about food safety. If something like that happened, you can bet your ass we would dump all of that meat, no questions asked. It's easy to rationalize that you are just doing your job as a criminal lawyer. At first, it is a little exciting, a little naughty, but you are doing your patriotic duty to defend constitutional rights. Usually it starts light. Drug users and drug dealers. Then maybe some assaults. It's all right. Maybe the other guy deserved it. Well, maybe not deserved it, but your client doesn't deserve years of jail for a drunken moment. Then there are the attempted murders and big schemes. It is hard to connect. The people seem so normal, and the dirty underbelly takes a long time to fully peel off. You get comfortable. It's a part of you. You are the consigliere. The American justice system wouldn't work without you. You become numb to the ethical issues. It is your ethical duty to help your client. After all, it is not your ethical duty to worry about the consequences of their and your actions. Then, you go home one day, and you realize that you helped a child molester out of jail time. A man that molested his own child. And you weep. My brother is a criminal defense lawyer, and I've often wondered how he feels about some of the people he's gotten off. I respect what you do. It is necessary to make the system work. The fact that you still have the capacity to still weep shows your humanity. Think about the ones that really are innocent and remember you have helped them. One of my roommates told me this story. He was working at the parking garage in Universal Studios, Florida during the peak of summer. He got bored with his coworkers and at the start of the day, decided to marshal every single white-colored car to the third floor of the garage. By the end of the afternoon, the entire third floor was a sea of white cars. The next shift was pissed as shit because they had to work extra hours since people were having a hard time finding their cars. I heard a story about a guy whose job was to choose which army base soldiers would get assigned to. He sent every soldier under 5 feet 5 inches and over 6 feet 5 inches to one particular camp. I think I got this one. I attended electronics school for the Air Force at Lackland, AFB, Texas. I'm considering this my job at the time. Anyhow, I was 20 years old, just out of basic, and I wanted to get drunk, but I was underage and the dorm was a dry dorm. So this dude down the hall says he's got a bottle of vodka and wants to get tanked also. We get our drink on, kill the bottle, and I head back towards my room. I was at the drunk stage where everything becomes a rail to stand, so I'm leaning on the wall the whole way back to the room. Get to my door and can't open it. I couldn't get my key in it. Directly across from my room door is an open bay bathroom, where people are hanging out after hours just shooting the shit. Some kind soul came over, took my keys, opened the door for me, pushes me in, and closes the door. I had just gotten a new roommate that day. Due to my party activities, I hadn't met him, and he was fast asleep. So I quietly get into bed, and the spins start. Eventually, I know I'm going to puke. I get out of bed and go for the trash can next to his laundry bag, bed, and shoes, all shinny and lined up. Needless to say, I end up vomiting all over his stuff, his bed with him in it, and everywhere else. Dude doesn't wake up. So now I'm in a panic. This guy is going to beat my ass. I stumble into the bathroom, grab as many paper towels as I can, then go back to the room to clean it all up. Then I blacked out. The bathroom area was still filled with people, and the account goes something like this. I walked out of my room with all these paper towels covered in vomit, went into a bathroom stall, shoved them in a toilet, flushed it, and it started overflowing. I then walked in the center of the bathroom, pulled down my pants, and started shitting in front of everyone. I woke the next day, went to the bathroom, and was pissing. This dude next to me was pissing and bitching about people trashing the bathroom, which we all had to keep clean. I had no recollection and said something like, "It smells like shit in here." Eventually, they called a dorm meeting and talked about the pooping incident. Then they asked if anyone knew. A bunch of people pointed at me. I still had no idea. A sergeant takes me aside and asks if I had been drinking. I said yeah, but I wouldn't do something like that. And how can you prove it? He said that there was a trail of shit from the bathroom to my door. Years later, kids coming through that pipeline school had heard of the incident, the phantom shitter. Worst thing I ever did, ever in my life, was when I worked at a cafe. I was running out orders and bussing tables, and I was just learning how to hold the tray properly with my left hand. So I get an order, 1 cappuccino, 1 strawberry milkshake for a mother and her little girl. As I get to their table, I put the coffee in front of the woman, then unbalance the tray and accidentally spill the milkshake all over this 7-year-old kid. It was her birthday, and they were her new clothes and shoes. Man, even her feet were just swimming in milkshake. Horrifying. TL, DR, accidentally poured milkshake all over a kid on her birthday. At least that was an accident. It's not like you stole from someone that can't see or hear and has seizures all the time. At least you didn't pour the coffee on her. Edit, decided to add my similar story. When I used to wait tables, a coworker of mine spilled an entire ice water on a baby. He didn't work there for much longer after that. I currently work in a large corporate office, and back when I first started several years ago, I didn't know that the layout of the building, i.e., the locations of alternate facilities. I had only ever used one restroom during the first few weeks of training. The night before, my wife and I had a big Mexican dinner at a local restaurant. I had to go, badly. I excused myself from the training room and scuttled my way to the bathroom. As I approached, and to my horror, I found it was being cleaned and had the "Do Not Enter" sign out. Fuck. At this point, it was everything I could do to keep from shitting my pants. I knew the general location of another restroom, about 200 yards away, so I headed that direction, walking like what I can only imagine looked like a father penguin carrying an egg on its feet. When I finally approached, I was sweating through my shirt and had blurry vision. I pushed the door open, found I had an empty restroom all to myself, and made my way to the middle stall and let loose the dogs of war. This was easily one of the top 3 shits of my life. As I'm sitting there gathering my thoughts, I hear the main door open, and to my surprise hear several feminine voices chatting about something or another. I wondered what the hell women were doing in a men's room. OMFG. Yep, I was in a ladies' room. I can honestly say I've never been so terrified in my life. I thought for sure if I got caught, I was getting fired for perving out in the girls' bathroom. I tried to collect myself and proceeded to clean up, putting my feet up so they didn't get suspicious. I had to wait for 20 minutes for an opportunity to escape undetected. I finally did, and never told anyone this story. Edit. Wow, thanks for all of the upvotes. I've gotten quite a few requests to list the top 2 shits of all time. Vagrants. Here goes. Shit number 2. I live at the beach in Florida, and one hot summer day, some friends and I were having a beach day. We had been there all day long, and it was about 5 p.m. when I got the urge to go. It was a cheek squeezer for sure. I knew there was no way I could make the trip back to the house in time, so I shuffled out to waist-deep water, untied my shorts, and proceeded to let out a perfectly shaped textbook beach torpedo. It was also a floater. Realizing this, I quickly pulled my pants up and headed back to shore. When I got back to the beach towel, I looked down the coast a bit in the direction of the current and saw a group of kids start yelling and screaming like they had seen a shark. I walked in the direction of the kids and overheard one of them say that they're making fun of their fried for getting touched by poop. I turned around and started laughing as I walked back to my friends and shared the story. Shit number 1. I will spare all the details of the events leading up to my arrest and begin the scene for shit number 1 taking place in the back of a cop car. I had been drinking a bit at a bar with some friends. Before I ever got in the car, I had to poop. The officer who arrested me was a complete asshole. I'm serious. This guy had 0 fucks to give, and he would not listen to my plight. I had to shit. He kept me in the car for over 4 hours, and I cannot take it. I keeled over, filled my shorts full of redemption. He got out of the car and started puking.